Thomas Midgley Jr. The end of Thomas Midgley Jr. might be the most ironic in the history of inventions. Midgley was a chemist and inventor famous for two world-changing inventions, but for the worse, leaded gasoline and chlorofluorocarbon CFCs, which destroyed the ozone layer. In 1940, at age 51, he contracted polio, which left him bedridden. To help himself get out of bed, he used his inventor's mind to design a complex system of ropes and pulleys. On November 2, 1944, tragedy struck. While trying to use his invention, the ropes became entangled around his neck, and he was strangled to death. The inventor, whose creations caused environmental and health disasters worldwide, ended up being killed by one of his own personal inventions. Archimedes. The end of Archimedes, the greatest scientist of antiquity, was as legendary as his life. In 212 BC, during the Roman siege of his city, Syracuse, Roman soldiers stormed the city. According to the most famous story told by the historian Plutarch, Archimedes was so completely engrossed in solving a geometrical problem he had drawn in the sand that he didn't even notice the city had fallen. When a Roman soldier stood over him and ordered him to go meet the Roman general, Archimedes refused, saying his famous line, "Do not disturb my circles." The soldier, who likely had no idea who he was talking to, flew into a rage and killed him with his sword on the spot. Archimedes died defending a math problem. The Wright Brothers. The Wright brothers, who gave humanity wings, had completely different ends. Wilbur Wright, the older brother, died in 1912 at just 45 years old. The official cause of death was typhoid fever, but his brother Orville was always convinced that the stress and mental strain from the long legal battles to protect their airplane patent had weakened Wilbur and made him susceptible to the disease. On the other hand, Orville Wright lived a long life and saw their dream change the world. Orville died in 1948 at the age of 76 from a heart attack. The interesting part of his story is that he lived long enough to see their simple invention evolve into jet aircraft that flew faster than the speed of sound, and he also lived to see aviation used as a devastating weapon in World War I and II, something he could have never imagined. Nikola Tesla. The brilliant mind who was ahead of his time had one of the most isolated ends in history. On January 7, 1943, Tesla was found dead, alone in his room, number 3327 at the New Yorker Hotel in Manhattan. He was 86. The maid, who was used to ignoring the "Do Not Disturb" sign Tesla would hang on his door, entered the room to find him deceased. The medical examiner determined the cause of death was a coronary thrombosis. Despite all his great inventions, Tesla died poor and in debt, spending his final years obsessed with feeding the pigeons in Central Park, whom he considered his only friends. After his death, the U.S. government seized all his papers and research under the Alien Property Custodian Act, even though he was an American citizen. Marie Curie. Marie Curie, the only woman to win a Nobel Prize in two different scientific fields, had a tragically sacrificial end for science. On July 4, 1934, Curie died at the age of 66 from aplastic anemia, a rare disease where the bone marrow fails to produce enough blood cells. Doctors were almost certain the disease was caused by her long and intense exposure to radiation during her pioneering research on elements like radium and polonium. At the time, no one knew the lethal dangers of radiation, to the point where she would walk around with test tubes of radium in her pocket, glowing with a faint blue light. To this day, her original notebooks and papers are considered highly dangerous and are kept in lead-lined boxes, and anyone who wants to view them must wear protective clothing. She literally died because of the same discovery that made her name immortal. Rudolf Diesel. The inventor of the diesel engine, Rudolf Diesel, had a mysterious end. On the night of September 29, 1913, Diesel was traveling on a steamer from Belgium to England. After having dinner with his colleagues, he went to his cabin around 10 p.m., asking to be called at 6:15 a.m., but he vanished. His room was empty and his bed was made untouched. His coat and hat were found neatly folded on the deck railing. 10 days later, a Dutch ship found a body in the sea that was too decomposed to be identified, but they took the personal items from the body's pockets, which his son later identified as his father's. The theories are many. Some say he committed suicide due to massive financial debts, while others say he was murdered to prevent him from selling his patents to the British before World War I. Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison, the man who practically invented the 20th century, had a death that was as eccentric as his life. By 1931, the 84-year-old inventor's health was failing due to complications from diabetes. He passed away at his home in New Jersey on October 18th. But the story gets weird. According to his son Charles, just before he died, Edison emerged from a coma, opened his eyes, and reportedly whispered, "It is very beautiful over there." This inspired one of the strangest post-mortem requests in history. Charles Edison asked the attending physician to capture his father's last breath in a test tube. The doctor sealed the air in the room right above Edison's head. That test tube, allegedly containing the final breath of America's greatest inventor, is still on display today at the Henry Ford Museum. Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci's end was one befitting a Renaissance genius. Da Vinci spent the last 3 years of his life in France under the patronage of King Francis I, who was one of his greatest admirers. On May 2, 1519, Da Vinci died at the age of 67, with the most likely cause being a stroke. There's a famous legend that Da Vinci died in the arms of King Francis III, but historians consider this story more romantic than factual, as royal court records suggest the king was elsewhere on the day of Leonardo's death. But what is certain is that Da Vinci died honored and respected, leaving behind a wealth of drawings and ideas that still amaze the world today. And he specified in his will that 60 beggars should follow his casket in his funeral procession. Let me know if you'd like a part 2. There are a few I didn't include because they're less well known, but they're even crazier. If you like this video, subscribe for similar ones.